position. You've now gone past general. Good for, and I hope you're well.
I'm very well. Now let me clarify that I wasn't called general because I was the general secretary. I was called general even before becoming the general secretary. So nothing has changed. You can continue calling me general.
Oh, okay. You had the name general before you became general secretary of the National Democratic Congress.
Yes, I had that name in Parliament.
Oh, fantastic.
So when I was campaigning to become general secretary, remember those who were on at that time, I was saying that I'm already a general, so add the secretary to me and I'll become the general secretary. So,
oh, that's great. Then I can easily say, General, good morning. Once again, thank you very much for speaking to us.
Good morning, and thank you.
Of course, I know you have been very busy doing a lot of groundwork ahead of the elections, but I'm sure your attention will have been drawn to the fact that the main contender to former President John Mahama actually shared his vision for us about, I think, 2 days ago. His key message is that he's been driver's mate for all these years. What he's asking for is to be made the driver. Do you agree? What do you think about that?
Thank you very much. Let me clarify that I didn't watch at the point of delivery, but as I indicated on other platforms, I recorded and I've now read every bit of what he said. And to me, there is nothing in there that merits so much attention. But since you asked about this specific question of being a driver or being a mate and so on, I refer you to the Gospel according to Saint John, chapter 10. When you read, it tells a story about how Jesus was warning his disciples that they will disappoint, they will deny him. And Peter kept saying that, no, my Lord, wherever you go, I'll go with you.
I love Radio Gold!
And then
0.5.
he turned and told Peter that, Peter, before the cock crows, you would have denied me 3 times. I think that if you read the Bible, that Bible story, it tells you exactly what is happening between Nanado and Dr. Bawumia. Because here was the case. You know, Dr. Bawumia, he was as close to Nanado, and Nanado was as proud with Dr. Bawumia the same way that Jesus Christ took Simon Peter. And they thought they were so close that anything that Jesus will do, anywhere that Jesus will go, Peter promised to be with him. And Jesus told Peter that, Peter, before the cock crows, you would have denied me 3 times today. And exactly it came to pass. When they came to arrest Jesus, some of the soldiers said, but this is one of his people. And Peter says, I never knew that man at all. They persisted, and 3 times he said that he had nothing to do with Jesus Christ. Then after that, Jesus turned and looked into Peter's face. And then Peter remembered all the warnings that Jesus gave. And he went to weep. So that is exactly the story between Nanado and Dr. Bawumia. So I am not surprised. More will unfold in the coming days. But let me tell you that it is too late for Bawumia to distance himself from Nanado. And it will be suicidal for Bawumia to do that. I recognize the job of Bawumia now is very, very, very difficult. In fact, I would say that his job in this campaign is much more difficult than any other manual job. He has to define himself whether he will take credit for the work of Nanado and therefore share in the blame of the shortcomings of Nanado's regime, or distance himself completely as not having anything to do with how this country has been governed in the past 7 years. There is no middle way for him. And it will be very difficult because he has been presented to us as the key actor on the economy, even before the election of Nanado. And after the election, that relationship or agency has been perpetuated to a point that he cannot now turn and say that I am not the agent of Nanado in the economic management of this country. He cannot deny that because the records are too plenty for him to attempt to deny. In fact, the more he tries to deny that relationship, the more he deepens his record as a liar or an untrustworthy person. So it's definitely between the hard rock, a rock and a hard place.
Why would he need to either distance himself from the record of this government or actually accept responsibility for it? Because listening to him, it was clear in his mind that when it comes to the main issue of the economy, even when in COVID where the economy performed so badly, they still did better than the economy that former President John Mahama ran. If that is his position, then he should feel that he's still better than the main contender, shouldn't he?
No, but before you go into that conversation, he said that they did better. Is he aligning himself with the management of the economy in the past 7 years? That is the big question he has to answer. If you are part of it, then you can argue that you perform better. But if you are not part of it, why are you comparing somebody's record with another person when you want to be voted for?
Okay.
So I thought you were comparing your record with another person's record, and it is on that basis that you can claim that since you have done better than him, you deserve to be retained or promoted. But now you are saying, part of your mouth is saying that you are just a driver's mate. You have nothing to do with anything that has happened as far as the economy management is concerned in the past 7 years. So how do you then take credit for what has happened, even if it is better than President Mahama's record? That is the big question he has to address. So if I were him, I won't run away from that record. Say that this is what we have done. And these are the mistakes that we committed. And I think that from hindsight, we will do things better if we are allowed to continue. That makes more sense than saying that I don't have anything to do with the management of the economy. I was powerless. I was a mere, vice president and so on. We understand that we are running a system with executive authority vested in the president. That there is no doubt about that. But the president chooses whom he uses to implement or design his policies or manage on his behalf any work. And the president has said a number of times that it is you, Dr. Bawumia, who he has put in charge of the management of the economy. Indeed, the economic management team is chaired by Dr. Bawumia. And Dr. Bawumia himself was the person who actually inaugurated the economic management team. And when he named the persons, he remarked that what a solid team. He selected each member of the economic management team, read his profile and credentials, and at the end of it, said, what a solid team. It didn't end there. Then, after 1 year of being in power, the president having to report to Parliament about the performance or the state of the nation, the president actually declared. That was 2018 State of the Nation. I was present, and I watched the lips of Nana Dodankwa Akufo-Addo, who read some economic indicators and touted them as success, and then said emphatically that he chose his vice president because of his ability, his knowledge in running the economy. And the vice president in the past year has risen to the challenge. And hence this impressive record. So everything is thanks to the brilliance of my vice president, Dr. Mahamadu Bawumia. Mahamadu Bawumia himself was present. He has never, till this day, he has never said that he had nothing to do with the management of the economy until yesterday when he was reading his address. And even yesterday, his communication was ambivalent. On the one side, he was claiming credit for what he considered to be economic achievements. And then on the other side, he was saying, he was dodging the blame for whatever had gone wrong. So that paints a picture of a leader who does not take responsibility for decisions he makes. And such a person will be a very dangerous leader for the country.
So for you, the very first point he needs to address is whether or not he is responsible for the record of the government.
Yes. And as I have said, he has denied Nanado completely. And you know, the day he was elected, did you watch Nanado? Did you listen to his speech? He said that this last year, remaining last year, he will devote all his efforts to make sure that he hands over to Dr. Mahamadu Bawumia. And Mahamadu Bawumia also confirmed that he had come this far totally due to the effort of Nana Dodankwa Akufo-Addo. So this is Peter and Jesus Christ. And then you haven't gone 1/3 of the year, and you have begun denying Nanado, blaming everything that has gone wrong in the government on him, exclusively, and that you were a mere vice president and you had nothing to do. You were not given the chance to operate and all that. Look, and what shocked me was that his story about that he had nothing to do with that. He disagrees with that. And then went back to a statement he made in 2020 in the campaign. You remember when the debate of VAT was raging, we referred to Bawumia's statement in March 2020 when the election hadn't happened. And he said that it is wrong for electronic transfer to be charged in e-levy.
Yeah.
So when the debate was raging, we brought this statement back and said that here is your vice president who has said that he doesn't believe in this thing. Why are you bringing it onto us? And the Minister of Information, the official spokesperson of the president, said that Dr. Bawumia was responsible for the drafting of the draft law, the e-levy law. And indeed, Dr. Bawumia, by his own conduct, created the impression that he was in charge of the e-levy law. Why? When we dragged the debate, and then eventually they prevailed by breaking all the rules of internal debate in Parliament by allowing a presiding speaker to descend to come and participate in a vote which ended up in the Supreme Court. That was how they got the e-levy and the other things passed. Then, after that, they actually celebrated with a cake designed e-levy. And Dr. Bawumia and Samira Bawumia were the guests of honor at that celebration. I think it coincided with the majority leader's birthday. The birthday cake was designed e-levy. Everybody saw it on television. If you don't have the pictures, I'll forward it to you after this discussion. And so, if you have nothing to do with e-levy, why do you become the guest of honor at the celebration of the successful passage of that law? Instead of that, they could have come to say that from hindsight, we realized that NDC was right. And so we will repeal the e-levy. And you don't even wait to come to power before you repeal. You repeal it now because you have the power to do it. You have the power to do it. All the things he's promising. They are in power. They can sack more than 10 of their ministers and they will get 50 they are looking at in future. Why wait to be voted for before you go there? So that is my view. In fact, it would have been better for him not to have organized this function at all, because I consider it to be a rally in support of President John Mahama. So the NDC is going to be the main beneficiary of the UPSA function.
A rally in support of the former president, how?
Oh, but here you are in your management of the economy. All the things that you were doing, which former president was criticizing with his NDC, and had promised to change. You now depart from your position, and now you are vindicating the former president, John Mahama, in many of the policy positions he has taken, and you are calling them a new direction. Why? But this VAT is one example of that. President Mahama was very clear on this. We led a demonstration on this e-levy. You all came to cover it. And on 10th February 2022, I then made a definite pronouncement at Circle, Bamukoma Circle, when we had gathered to move. And I said that we are resisting the passage of this e-levy law. But should they use force or any manipulation to get it passed, it will be one of the very first laws that we will scrap. Go and check the video and everything in there. 10th February 2022. And then give the direction for all our party communicators to follow. And we took it to Parliament. Our minority caucus insisted and fought this e-levy. All that time, Dr. Bawumia and his so-called majority in Parliament were fighting us, and they managed by manipulation to get the law passed. And after that, they jubilated and celebrated and actually e-levy organized a function to celebrate the passage of e-levy law with a cake, green cake, designed e-levy. And Dr. Bawumia and Samira Bawumia were the guests of honor at the celebration of the e-levy victory. How can the same person come now and say that he was not part of the e-levy? He didn't have anything. He was against e-levy. And let me tell you something. The story of VAT. When VAT was passed first, there were divisions in our cabinet at that time, NDC cabinet under President Rawlings. There is Kumi-Profu demonstrations were raging and all that. So a senior cabinet minister who disagreed with the passage of the VAT law as it was at that time actually walked to Parliament. I was on the Finance Committee. He walked to Parliament in slippers and casual dressing, sat before the Parliamentary Committee because we had invited views and position papers, memoranda and others from the general public. So he came and sat in front of us. Everybody was shocked. What is happening? So when we invited him to speak, he said, I am Obe Yawa Samoa. I am here as a private citizen of Ghana. I'm not a cabinet minister. And I want to make my submissions to this committee about my views. So we listened to him. And he condemned the VAT law as it was at that time. That gave the Parliamentary Committee courage to repeal that law. Sent it back to Cabinet for it to be repackaged about 6 months or so later and reintroduced. This is a principal leader who tells you that, look, I disagree with this thing and I want to put my views on record that I'm not part of it. Dr. Samoa was not sacked as a minister. In the end, when the VAT was repackaged and brought, the finance minister, Professor Kwasi Butche, may his soul rest in peace, had to resign. That is what integrity of leadership means. So you cannot be part of something and you are watching. If it succeeds, oh, I was responsible. When it doesn't succeed, you say, I don't have anything to do with it. That would be a very dangerous leader for Ghana.
But is there anything in vision? Because you started by saying there's nothing that merits attention. Is there anything in the vision that perhaps you think deserves some credit?
I think I saw this credit rating thing of customers and all that. I think as a finance person, I believe it's a good thing. And then also, of course, the scrapping of VAT and all that, the scrapping of the e-levy and all that. I'm not saying they are bad, but it's just rehashing some of our policy positions. That's why I say it doesn't merit any attention. You know, we have spoken about this 15% levy on domestic electricity. President Mahama has spoken about this across the country. So you come now and say that I'm waiting to come to power before you scrap it. When you are part of the people put it in place now. I mean, what type of comedy is that? And then he talks about emission tax and all this. Were this not the cause of controversy in passing their last budget? And didn't all the NDC MPs vote against those things? And when we voted against it, we said that we are putting our views on record that NDC does not support this. But every MPP MP voted, including Canada, Japan. Everybody there voted. And those MPs in MPP who were retained because they support Dr. Veep Bawumia strongly, they all voted to approve all these taxes. So what message was Dr. Bawumia passing to them in the course of that debate and voting? And so to think that when I haven't done anything to you, you arrest me, put me in handcuffs, and say, I'm going to slap you 10 times every day. But if you declare me as your leader, then I'll reduce the slapping to 5 times. That is what Dr. Bawumia wants to do now.
So you're grateful to him for perhaps restating your position, but you feel that he's in the position to actually change things before he is even given the opportunity if the Ghanaians decide to do so.
First, the things he's condemning are the very things we have condemned. And so if he now is coming to join our class, he's declaring himself the campaign manager for NDC now. Because we talked about the size of government. If nobody spoke about it at all, I can refer to my interviews. And they are all on record. They are in the archives. When they started appointing ministers, I was saying that there are too many. That government or running a country is in some respects like running a business entity. So the size and cost of government represents the overhead running the country. So if the overheads are unduly heavy, then you cannot have money to do investments that will generate growth. So you are spending too much on governance. And I even went ahead to ask whether anybody has done the costing of maintaining one minister in government and multiply it by the 130 or so ministers that he has. Sections of the media were accusing some of us and saying that the rot we had created requires a certain huge number of ministers to sort out. Was that not said in this country? And was Bawumia not the vice president? Then after 7 years of distraction of the economy, you now turn around to say that you have nothing to do with the appointment of those number of ministers. And you didn't complain. And then President Mahama declared that he would downsize the government because we are spending too much on useless things that things could have been done in a much more efficient way and more cost-effective way. He will be merging some ministries, he will be scrapping some and all that. Then, and so he will end up with 50 ministers. Now you are going to announce a new deal, and you have abandoned your position of increasing number of ministers, and now turn around to say that you will choose 50 ministers to have a smaller government than President Mahama. What type of joke is this? So he has destroyed himself, honestly. There is nothing consistent about Dr. Bawumia's political rhetoric. No, because today you say the sky is blue, tomorrow he says the sky is red. The next day he says the sky is yellow. And he's describing the same sky.
I see. Would you give him the campaign manager position since he seems to have demonstrated that he's capable of doing the job?
If he applies for it, I will advise President Mahama to do that. Because all the things he's saying just goes to vindicate the positions that President Mahama has been espousing, our minority in parliament has been espousing, and our party leadership has been espousing all along. Except where he turns around to paint the current situation as better than President Mahama's record. That's the only thing. About that one, the facts speak different story. So that one is easily exposed. But apart from that, all that he's calling his new policy, I see him as an opposition leader attacking this government. And you see, I don't blame him because he knows where the tide is going. And so he just want to, go in there and take advantage. You saw how Canada, Japan, who nobody expected to be a presidential material of any sort at all, just jumped up and gained prominence because of his attack on the MPP government. So he thinks that the way to go now, whether it is with connivance of Nanado and his people or not, he thinks the way to go now is to mislead Ghanaians by pretending to attack the record which there is consensus is bad. So if he attacks that record, then he is distancing himself from the bad governance and then bringing himself to the side of the people. Let him know that that position of being on the side of the people is already occupied by President Mahama. So there is no vacancy there for him to occupy. So he should remain where he is and then take responsibility, full responsibility for what has happened in the government. When I hear some of their communicators saying that as for the government, as for the economy, the Minister of Finance is responsible. Who says that we don't have Minister for Communication who is responsible for digitalization? Don't we have one?
Yes, we do.
We do. So if your argument is that because there is finance minister, so the economy, responsibility for the economy is for the finance minister, and that you are leading digitalization. So what is the work of Osla Usu, who is the Minister for Communication? What work does he do? Every sector has a minister. And the president knows that. And yet he said, you are in charge of the economy. So if your record is poor, own up to that record and don't shift it to anybody. I'll not be surprised when he one day comes out to say that all that has happened in the past 7 years,
0.5.
Mahama was responsible. He can say it. The way things are going, he can say it. You see? And let him know also that the international scene cannot be completely devoid of problems. So if all government is about, governance is about, is to fail and assign your failure to something that has happened in the international scene, then any class 1 boy can become president. Yes. Because if you fail, there will be something. Ukraine war
0.5.
has not stopped. So if your failure is due to Ukraine war and the war has not stopped, why should we continue to make you president? And new challenges are emerging. There's now Israeli-Palestinian conflict. There's one in Yemen, another, and it will continue coming. So, and while these things are happening, your colleagues in the sub-region are making progress. Go and see what is happening in Benin. They don't have 10% of the resources we have in Ghana now. They are developing their economy based on cotton, just cotton. Go and see Cote d'Ivoire. Even the Ukraine and Russia you are talking about. Has anybody checked the GDP growth, the economic growth of Russia, even in the middle of the war? Has anybody checked that? Go and check. It is far better than what you are doing in Ghana here, when nobody is throwing any bomb. Yeah. So the truth, the reality is that the international scene will continue to have turbulence.
Radio Gold.
Either pandemic, war, disasters, and all that. But you are expected to govern and push your country forward. Even when, in our case, a specific international event impacted on our governance and the power situation. And I'm talking about the breaking of the West African gas pipeline, which supplied gas from Nigeria to us here. When that pipeline was run over by a ship and it got broken, and therefore gas supplies to the country came to zero. And for which reason there was doomsday. Did you hear President Mahama saying that he's not responsible for doomsday? He worked on it and solved it. And even that one, you, MPP, Veep Bawumia, all the lectures he was giving was that we were reckless. How come that international things will affect us in isolation? When you knew that the gas pipeline was carrying gas to Ghana and no other country at that time. But we still took responsibility and said there was a problem and we solved it. In the end, you blame us for even contracting more power and say we are responsible for excess capacity. The same that is saying that we didn't solve doomsday. You are now telling us that we brought excess capacity. And then at some point you turn around to say that you solved doomsday. So what type of communication is that? So all it points to is a person who just wants to swindle the country because he wants to be president, and that's all. He's not thinking about any development of the country at all.
General, thank you very much for speaking to us this morning.
My brother, thank you.
Is the national chairman of the National Democratic Congress, Mr. Johnson Asiedu Nketia, popularly known as General Mosquito. We'll be speaking to Mr. Franklin Kujo next. We also have our senior Raymond Acha coming up. And don't forget my guest, like I said, at 9 a.m.